know that we all gonna be alright. We gon' make it through if it takes us all night. No matter what the odds may bring our way, I can see the blessings coming our way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Blessings on blessings, yeah. I can see the blessings coming our way. Our way, our way. Blessings on blessings, yeah. I can see the blessings coming our way.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Relationship Restored.
She's messed it up again. Hey guys, I need to get a new Bre.
I am tired. You overwork me.
I need a new. Hey guys, it's Dre and.
Ooh, yeah.
You're supposed to say Bre, not ooh, yeah.
Oh, no, I thought you were doing it.
Oh my gosh. It's Dre and Bre, and you're watching Worthy Wait podcast.
No, you're not going to steal my thunder.
So say
you
it right.
You don't do it right. Hey guys, it's
Dre
and Bre, and you're tuned in to Worthy Wait
podcast.
Hey.
Hosted on the Relationship Restored podcast network. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about just trauma and past things that you're bringing into your relationship. And this is one thing that we talked about it on our channel before when we had the Worth the Wait channel, but my perspective on this has changed quite a bit on it. Because I realize when you think of trauma, you only think of a lot of times people who brought like baggage into the relationship. Mm-hmm. But you realize that everybody has trauma. Like you have your own traumas that you deal with, even if you grew up or lived what people would call a perfect life or something like that. Like I realized that even though I grew up in a home to where like I went to private school from kindergarten to 8th grade and then public school for high school, my mom very much sheltered me from a lot of things, which is good. I wasn't exposed to things like too early than what I needed to be exposed to those things. Growing up probably to the age of 11 or 12, my stepdad and my mom were married. So I grew up in really a 2-parent household and saw like how a man is supposed to lead in a relationship with a woman. I didn't see abuse, both physically or verbally. I didn't see infidelity. I didn't see any of that growing up. But even with all that being said, I still have my own traumas that I had to face and understand when I got into this relationship. And I wouldn't say it's initially when I got into the relationship. It kind of really came like after we got married and really like after Bre kind of got on the other side or dealt with a lot of the stuff that she was dealing with to now it was like, oh, okay, now it's kind of time to focus on Dre. And it's like, hold on, there's some things that Dre could be doing better and needs to do better. But, you know,
that was exciting for me.
That was just, it wasn't exciting for you. You were upset about.
Well, no, I mean, like, I was like, oh my God, he's human. Yay, it's not just me.
But it's just understanding for me that there was things that I had to understand or figure out, like, why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? Why do I operate this way? And I didn't know. Like,
can you think of a good example?
I mean, even something in our last episode, we talked about how Bre's love language is physical touch. And it was something like why I don't like to hold hands. Like,
yeah, that's a good example.
Like Bre knows that I will put my arm around her in public, but I just never like to hold hands. And it's like, why do you feel that way? And for a long time, I thought that like, in my head, it felt like corny. It felt like cheesy.
Childish.
It felt like childish. Like,
and I was like, what?
It felt like, oh, we're like 5 years old. And I don't know, it felt embarrassing. It felt like if people saw me holding hands, they would think I'm like childish and a kid. And it's like, and the thing with traumas or the way that you think, to other people who it comes naturally to, they'll think you're like crazy, right? But for you who suffers through things, or maybe there was something you saw as a child, or maybe there was something you saw growing up that made you feel some type of way about something, like it's hard for you to fight through those things or battle through those things because it's not a thing that you're doing on purpose. It's just like conditioned in your mind somehow. And that was, for me, a change of perspective on trauma, is that when you're in a relationship and you have to understand, why do I do the things I do? And when you look at that and realize I don't have an answer for why I do the things, like I don't know, like if Bre would ask me sometimes when it came to things in our relationship, why do you do that? Or why do you think like that? Or why are you, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I honestly I don't know why I think that way. Like, I need to start to do some investigating and doing some digging and looking in my past and seeing like, why do I think the way that I think, and why do I do the things that I do, and why do certain things come so hard to me or challenging to me. Even the thing that we talked about in the last episode too is like me not caring about birthdays or holidays or anything like that. I can care less about those things. I don't want to spend money on those things. I don't care to celebrate those things. If there's like events or something, I'll attend them because I know it's happening on that day. But do I care about those like days and specifically, including my own birthday? No, I don't. And it's like, why do I think that way? And it would have to probably take some investigating to figure out like, why do I think that way? And that was like kind of my journey with trauma and how that impacted me in this relationship. And we'll get to Bre in a second because she has a little bit different journey than I did. And we could talk about too, like what it feels like on the other side when you're working with somebody through that and somebody is going through that, how to support them and their discovery or self-discovery or rediscovery or trying to understand why they do the things that they do. But I think that Bre, you could talk a little bit about like how you entered into our relationship and the things that you were going through and trying to break and whatnot. But I will say this about Bre. Sorry, I'm messing with my shoe. I will say this about Bre is that when Bre came into our relationship, she didn't have everything together. But the one thing that she did have is that she knew that the way and the things that she was doing sometimes wasn't necessarily the right thing. And she wanted to change, which is a huge thing. It's like what I said in one of our previous episodes. It's about showing up to class. She came to class every day and showed up to class and showed that she wanted this relationship. She wanted to do better. She just needed some help and some time and somebody to be patient as she was trying to work through the things that she was working to be a better person. So I will commend her on that. But let's talk about your journey and the things that you kind of brought into our relationship and where those stem from and whatnot.
I don't know where to start, honestly. Well, I would say one of the biggest things was probably finances. Like, I started working at a very young age because I wanted a certain lifestyle. I wanted certain things out of life. And I surrounded myself with people who like had money, bought flashy things, went on nice trips. And it was almost as if like I was trying to keep up with the Joneses in a sense. And had to like check myself on like what I really wanted out of life and put priorities on like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And when I first met Dre, I was all about just like making sure that I lived in the moment and enjoyed like every day, because you just never know what the next month is going to look like or what's around the corner. And I was a big, what is the word? Opportunist. Like, I knew how to get what I wanted. And that was bad when you go from being single and you can get what you want from all these different people. And then now I have to be faithful to you and respect you in our relationship and kind of turn that knob off. That was hard for me. And I had to tell Dre, like, I need some money this month. Like, I'm a little behind on my bills, and you're my boyfriend now. I got people I can hit up, but I don't want to be disrespectful. And it was like hard for me because I'm like, like that's something I have to give up. And it made me realize like I shouldn't be doing that anyways. But that was one of the main things, was finances, because it made me feel trapped. Like, when we set budgets at the very beginning, I was like traumatized by the idea of somebody telling me what I can and can't do with my money, whether it was Dre or the budget that we created together. I felt trapped by it. And that was hard. It took a while. I would say like 2 years. And now
Still working on
the
it.
roles have reversed. You're more spendy and I'm more like, what are we doing? What's the budget looking like? What's this? What's that?
True.
Yes, roles have reversed. Big spender over here, this guy. No, I'm good with money though now. Like I understand the value of a dollar, and
she's a lot better. I will say that Bree's a lot better, but
yeah.
she still wants what she wants. She's okay with setting the budget, but at times she'll be like, "Oh, we shouldn't buy this," but then if she wants something, she'll be like, "All right, let's just do it."
Nah, maybe. But that was one of the biggest things. The second biggest thing for me was like how we talked about this in the last episode, communication, like how to communicate with your person. I had so many bad toxic relationships that I was used to moving a certain way, and allowing, like, sitting down and getting real with myself and having a serious conversation was scary for me because I didn't do it often with my mom or with my siblings or family or with friends or with ex-boyfriends. Like, it was all surface level stuff, and you just kind of throw everything under the rug and just blow up and then get over it. That was scary for me, opening up in that way and being vulnerable and honest and apologizing or saying I was wrong or really looking in the mirror. That was difficult. Drinking was a really big one. I always used drinking in the past as a form of two things: to celebrate or to like drown myself in my sorrows. Like if I was sad, drink, get drunk, and have a good time, forget about it, wake up the next day, and hope that the hangover is not so bad. Or, yay, we're celebrating, go out, get drunk, and wake up, hope the hangover is not bad. Neither one served any purpose for me, like, at all. And it was my escape and my like mechanism for not dealing with things in the moment. And Dre, because we were waiting for marriage, we put drinking, like, we cannot get drunk together. That was a big boundary. And I didn't like sleeping on Mimi's couch when I would come home with some drinks in my system, acting, tempting or doing whatever, to where he was like, you got to go. And that was hard for me too. There was that. There's so many things.
One thing I want to say about everything that the baggage or the trauma that Bre brought to the table, now fast forward, what is now, 4 or 5 years, I would guess, 5 years. She's a lot better, like significantly a lot better with everything that she's talking about right now. And I say that because there was times in our relationship to where Bre really had some doubt, is that if she could change, like if she could really like not get so angry. Like, she used to get mad and then get angry about how angry she was getting to get even more angry. And then she'd be like, I just don't understand why I'm so upset about this. I don't know what I'm going to do, how I cannot be like I
was like, my dad is bipolar, and I told Dre, I was like, what if I'm bipolar? Is that why I get so like out of control? And then like, I'm confused as to why I just felt that way. And it's like these super highs and lows. And I was trying everything to be like aware of it all. But that's hard to do, especially when you're trying to unpack all these. It's like one packing one bag is a lot, but unpacking like 5 separate bags with all of their own issues, like that's when it becomes a lot and it's like overwhelming. But what I learned is, what was the best for me is first figuring out like what I needed from Dre. So when I'm in this moment, this is what I need from you. And when I'm forgetting that this is my goal, this is what I need you to say to me. And when I'm having this moment, do not do that. Just leave me alone, give me space, and like I'll hold myself accountable. Or, what really helped, that had nothing to do with Dre or me, and I think it was more of a, like, it made me cognizant of what was happening, was prayer. Like, I would, in the moment when I'm angry, I would just stop exactly where I am and just like close my eyes and pray for God to just give me peace, like just wash over me with peace, like calm me, like take this anger out of me. Like, I would say things like and repeat in my head, like, I will not let the devil take over. I will not let the like I am in control. And when I first started doing it, I felt so cuckoo because I'm like, like this is like what they show in movies. I'm like, oh gosh, who am I? But it helped so much to the point to where I don't have to do that now. I've created a habit to knowing when I'm being triggered by something and becoming upset, and I know how to deal with it so that it doesn't become a whole thing. And I'm not where I need to be with that. I still have, I think it was like 6 months ago, I broke like our remote control because it feels good to throw things when I'm upset. Now I throw pillows and it's great. And I throw the pillow like into the couch. So I'm not throwing my computer, phone, like things that could break, because I love Dre and I know that if I do this thing, it's not only going to take money out of my account. It's our money that we're going to have to spend on this new thing. There's nothing wrong with it. Why would I pick it up and throw it? What is that solving? And in the moments that I do feel weak and I'm like, okay, I do just got to like throw something real quick, I'll just like take a pillow and throw it on the couch, or like, punch a pillow. And it feels good. It's like, it got my anger out. I really think I need to go to boxing. But yeah, it's like, we all have different things. And this is something that's really major too, is like a trauma is not it's not just something that was really, really bad that happened to you. It's a time that creates a trigger for you. So something small, if you lent a friend $20 and that friend never paid you back, every time from then that someone asks you to borrow money, you're going to think to that moment, it's going to trigger your thought. And you're either going to say to yourself, I'm going to give this money with no expectation of receiving it back. And that's just how you look at borrowing money. Or you're going to never want to allow someone to borrow money because you're going to know that you're not going to get that money back. And that's not something that you want to do. So it could be something so simple as that, or simple words that someone says to you that reminds you of a person from your past. And it could just bring up emotions. And even though it has nothing to do with the person standing in front of you, you react a certain way. I want to tell this story because I think this could be really relatable, and for people to understand, like when you get married, it's not like everything all of a sudden is like perfect. And I think a lot of people get engaged and they deal with things and they're like, like once we get married, it'll be better. There are things that are going to come up when you get into new chapters of your life that you thought you dealt with, that you thought you had a handle on, that you thought didn't bother you. And the smallest thing can happen and it all comes flooding back. And Dre knew this because I told him about this story, because I asked him, I was like, so, once we're married and stuff, I'm like, do you like lingerie? Like, do you want me to like dance for you or do anything? Like what's your vibe? Like, what is your expectation? And he was like, nah, like I don't really care for like lingerie, and like no, like I don't need like shows, to get in the mood or nothing like that. So like, nah, it's not a necessity. My relationship prior to Dre, he knew that anytime we were intimate, it was like a request that I would wear lingerie, and most of the time like heels and lingerie, like full blown. And it got to the point where I thought like something was wrong with me. And I was like, he doesn't want me unless I do this thing. I thought I dealt with all of that. I did deal with all of that. And I knew going into this relationship that Dre was not that person, and understanding that I can't carry that into the relationship. But once we got married and we were being physical and all of those things, it was almost like I was upset that he didn't ask to like see me in lingerie or didn't want certain things from me. And I was like, why am I having these feelings? And I realized that has nothing to do with him. It's that now that sex is introduced into this new chapter, it's reminding me of the norms or the habits that came with it. And it was making me feel bad about myself. Meanwhile, Dre has no idea I'm feeling any type of way, because he wasn't requesting anything of me. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I don't need that. And it was just weird. And I had to really deal with it and figure out like, okay, why is this odd to me? And it's like, because that was a big part of my life where it affected my self-esteem. And in that relationship, it had a negative, effect on me. And in our relationship, that I should be having a positive effect from it, a positive effect that he's saying he doesn't need all of those things. But I had to unpack and really figure out like what the issue was and like why that made me feel unloved, even though I knew that it was a bad thing that I didn't want in our relationship. So you can think that you're done with X, Y, and Z and you've moved on and you found closure, but in relationships, things will come up. And if your person doesn't know, like imagine if Dre didn't know that story. When I would have expressed to him what was going on, he'd have been so confused, like, what? But he knew the history behind everything and we were able to talk about it. And now it's not a thing, but it's because he worked with me through it and had that conversation. I didn't feel silly. I didn't feel unworthy or any of those things. I was just able to be honest. So things will come up, but you have to tell your person how to help you through those things. Because if you're dealing with it on your own and thinking that they can't tell that anything is going on, or hoping that they can tell that something's going on, and if they don't peep that something, now you really feel away because it's like you don't even notice. You know, it can just create so much turmoil, and it's just not worth it. So being open and honest about the things and how to support you through it, I think, is a major part of dealing with trauma.
No, I agree. That's a good point, and thank you for sharing that. And this, what you said, kind of piggybacks on the thing that we were talking about last episode, where it's when you were talking about how you could be thinking your partner is feeling some type of way, but they're feeling something completely opposite. So even when it came to the lingerie thing, in my head, I'm like, oh, this is perfect because I'm letting her know that you don't need to do all that for me to be attracted to you. But in her mind, because of her past traumas, it's like, you're not attracted to me because you don't want these things from me. Like, why won't you ask for this? Like, why won't you request this? Like, that shows me that, you know, you're into this and you want to do this. So it's like, that's why the communication thing is so important. And that's why I want to talk about first from my perspective. And for those who are dealing with somebody who's come from like a more traumatic past, I guess, where the trauma is a little bit more visible and noticeable. Because I've met some people to where they have somebody who's fully committed and somebody who loves them, but there's a lot of trauma in that, to where they may be, you know, maybe they are verbally abusive because that's the type of home that they grew up in, or maybe they are very insecure about things because of past relationships or things like that. And number one is that you just have to be patient, right? And this is just in general when you're talking with when you're operating with someone in a relationship. And I say this all the time, and this is something that we had to learn with each other, is that a lot of times if you're bringing up something in your relationship that you are unhappy about, right? It's because somebody is habitually doing something. And if they're habitually doing something, that means that it's a habit. So just because you bring it up one time does not mean it's going to change.
That's a good point.
I remember at one point, Bre was getting on me about doing something, and she told me, it's like, I've told you so many times. I'm like, Bre, listen, this is a habit that
I've had my whole life.
This is a habit that I've had my whole life. Guess what? I hear you, and I'm going to try to do better. But just now, right now, you're telling me how you feel and what you want me to stop doing. So guess what? I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again. I'm not trying to do it, but the thing is that I'm trying to break a habit. So although I'm making efforts to try to do it, I'm going to mess up again. I'm going to do the thing that you don't want me to do again. So you just got to be patient with me, work with me, work with me, work with me. And I told her that all the time. But then as she became patient, and also I'll say this, I told her, I said, it's going to come with some growing pains. I was like, there's going to be times you're going to be really frustrated, but then there's going to be some times where you're going to be like, whatever. But I said, if you are patient with me, you'll start to see the change. And I think that that's a big thing, is that you need to focus when you're with somebody who's struggling through something and trying to do better. Focus on the things that they're doing right. Like, celebrate those things. Let them know that you notice the things and the strides that they're making. Because I think that's one thing that I messed up in the beginning with us, is that, like, when she was making strides with financial things, because there were things that she wasn't doing right, I was always focused on that. And then I would dismiss the small things that she would do right, because I'm like, that's nothing. Like,
and
you're
that's
doing
where
these things wrong.
in the last episode, I mentioned that early on, I felt like I had to walk on eggshells, or like everything that I did was wrong. I was just felt like I was like constantly disappointing him and like our relationship and like what we talked about, because you can't just hit a switch and it just, you're a new person. It's like breaking habits are hard. Breaking or changing your mindset is hard. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of repetitive small steps to get to the bigger goal. So I like that you brought that up. That's good.
Yeah, it's celebrating those things. And like I said, I had to realize that was important, because the thing is that whenever you do something naturally, you look at somebody who struggles with it as like, come on, how could you not like do that? Or the things that you feel, are common sense. Like you feel like, oh, everybody should know this, when the person that you're with may not know it or it may not come natural. You feel like, how could you not know this? But the biggest thing is that when they do it, you don't see it as anything impressive. You say, oh, that's what you should have been doing. And that's like the worst thing.
I did that.
You did that a lot with me when it came to certain things. Well, it's just
the romantic, like,
yeah. So it's like,
I'm like, well, you're supposed to do that. That's not impressive.
yeah. So it's like, you have to understand, it's like, this is something that your partner struggles with
Yeah.
for whatever reason, whatever trauma that they have. This is something that they struggle with. So instead of dismissing the things that you like want from them, you got to celebrate those things, even if it's small, even if it's something that it's like you think should be a natural thing. Like they struggle with it, so you need to celebrate it, and that's like super important. That's something that we learned. So I would say, if you're dealing with somebody who's going through traumatic things and you're trying to walk with them through that, is number one, you got to be patient, but number two is celebrating the times when they are like doing better, because it's going to take time for them to heal and get to the point to where you feel like, all right, you're really operating at this good point. But you got to meet them in the middle, and you got to celebrate those wins. So I'll say that's my part from the other side, but
And real quick before you keep going, that is why the love language stuff is also important, because when Dre said celebrate their wins, you have to know what to them would feel like you're celebrating them. Like, is it a hug? Is it saying, hey, you did a great job? Is it giving them a gift? Is it like, scheduling quality time on your calendar? Like, what is their love language, and how can they receive your praise in the way that you want it to be received?
Exactly. But I want to get into the point of, we talked about this in the last episode, is going to seek extra help when you're trying to dive into these things. And this is something recent that I think Bre is like diving into. And it's something we talked about a lot, but it's something recent. And honestly, I saw once she had like one of her individual counseling sessions, like how something like clicked, like there was like a change, and it was just like she operated so differently. And I told her the other day, I was like, I noticed the change. I want to let you know that I noticed the difference. I noticed the change, and I noticed how you're operating. And I appreciate you for the mindset that you're taking and the patience that you have with things now. But like, talk about that, like seeking outside help and how that helped.
Yeah. So as you guys know, Dre and I did pre-marriage counseling, right? There is a benefit, a huge benefit to doing counseling as a couple, but you can't get into the individual stuff as much, or you can't get as deep, or you might be afraid of saying certain things because your person is sitting next to you, and you just need to be like honest. Maybe it's something that they probably shouldn't hear, because you need to be able to just kind of say it how it is, and someone on the opposite end can help you interpret what that feeling is. That is super, super helpful. And for me, when we were doing the group and switched over to solo, it was almost like how like when you have a first day of school and you have like a syllabus, and you like, I want to sit in front of the class. I don't know. I was a nerd. I would be like, I want to sit in front of the class. Like, I'm gonna have my syllabus and all my pencils out and blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to like soak in everything and make sure that like the teacher knew who I was. The first solo session that I had, because we had the same counselors that did together. And then it was like, this is my moment to like fully have the focus on me, and to make sure like I'm going to take the notes and I'm going to put in the work, and I want him to see the difference. Like, it's one thing if you're doing it together and he's fully aware of exactly what we're talking about, what we're working on, and we're holding each other accountable. But it was exciting to me to have myself hold myself accountable, and to see him see the difference without me asking for it. But one of the things that was kind of like a pivotal, like, aha, and I think this is what Dre was talking about, like I saw a huge difference, is through having my solo session, I learned that even all of the work that I put in for my daddy issues and unpacking that bag, they pointed out things that no one has ever pointed out before. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so simple yet so deep. And what they said to me was that Dre he's in my life now as this like perfect person, almost like this person who I know like isn't going to let me down, is going to love me through everything, best friend, support, like he's my rock. So my question to them is, why do I put so much of a high expectation on him all the time? It's almost like he's so good that I'm setting a bar that's too high, hoping that he just can't reach it. And our whole life, he's always reached the bars and it's never been an issue. Once we got married, I felt like, hey, I'm setting these bars. Where are you? Normally you grab them and reach them like it's nothing. And I just kind of feel like you don't even see them. And he really wasn't doing anything. It was more internally because I'm like, okay, well, now we're married. It's like, for me, now the bar is going to go even higher. Like, you got to do all the things. And what they said is, because I went my whole life being disappointed by my biological father, that in past relationships, I went into them understanding and having the expectation of being disappointed. So my bar was never set high. When me and Dre met and I had this thought of like, okay, like marriage is a thing that I'm interested in. You're pretty cool and I might want to spend my life with you. Let's see what this marriage thing does. And then you get closer and you're like, okay, like, no, this is great. Like this, you're my person. And I have all these high bars and you're meeting them. They said subconsciously, because our brain is crazy. Like what happens in our brain is very hard to understand. And it's all based on chemicals and things that our bodies knows, but our mind is not going to break down for us. And we're not going to be able to interpret what is actually happening until after the fact and you break it all down. So subconsciously, I'm setting these high bars and I'm just waiting for Dre to not meet my expectation. And when they told me that, I was like, that makes so much sense. I've never had someone in my life always meet the bars or not let me down. And when that happens, it's almost like a trick. Like you're like, well, let's see, you know, how much I can get out of you. Like, what are you going to do? When are you going to let me down? And the expectations were just, they were so silly. And I mean, to me, they had meaning. But when I really broke it down, I'm like, yeah, it's almost like self-sabotaging. And that is something that I've dealt with in the past as well. So unless you have the one-on-one sessions, things like that aren't going to be discovered in the couples, or at least it might be harder or it might take a longer time. So I highly suggest that even if you are getting couples counseling, it is good for, as a couple, for you both to have individual sessions with the same person who is doing the couple sessions too, because it just gets a little deeper when it's just one-on-one. But that was super helpful for me. And I was like, wow, so simple yet so complex.
No, that's real, because I remember there used to be so many times prior to that to where you would say something, you would felt like I disappointed you, and you'd be like, I was testing you. And it's like,
yeah, that's not good.
Like, are you testing me for? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to see if you would do this. And, you know, with you saying that make it all comes together now. It's like, oh, you were testing me? It's like, that doesn't, like, why would you even do that? So,
yeah. I love the one-on-one stuff. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great place to kind of bring the conversation full circle, is that sometimes you need assistance with understanding your trauma, digging back into your trauma, and for somebody to give you a different perspective, because as much as you try to work through your own problems on your own, it can be difficult at times to figure out why you think the way you think or why you do the things you do, or looking at your past and trying to understand it. You do have bias, let me tell you, with your own self. Like, you do have bias. You look at certain things and certain people in a different light. But when you take somebody who doesn't really know you, necessarily, or doesn't really understand the people that you're talking to, or don't understand your dad or know who your dad is or your mom or anything like that, and they're just reading everything from what you say, how you say it, you know, how, you know, in what manner you're communicating things, then it allows them to really, you know, evaluate you and hopefully try to pinpoint some of the things that they see that could probably help you deal with your past trauma. So, like I said, go see some help if you need help.
And reach out to us if you're looking for somebody, because we know people's. We can definitely refer people your way. Just reach out.
Yes. Be patient with the person. if that person that you're with is dealing with trauma. And yeah, just know that if you guys love each other, you're committed, and you guys are trying to work on things, Bre is a true testament. And I think myself as well, is that if you stick to it and you be patient with the person that you're with, they can change. No, I feel like no matter how bad, unless they're like medically diagnosed with something, that's one thing. But I think no matter how bad certain things are, if you give somebody patience, if they seek help and they're moving about things intentionally, they can get through whatever things they've dealt with in their past.
Yeah, it's all in the mind.
For sure. Well, make sure you follow us on Instagram. I'm at It's Dre Smith. She's at Brianna Ponte. And make sure you follow Relationship Restored Instagram page.
Hey.
Love you guys.